Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to welcome you to the finale in our series of webinars on high growth markets for first-time exporters. In this webinar, we will be talking about India and the opportunities and challenges it presents as a market. The series is being run in partnership with our principal sponsor, HSBC, and with the Overseas Business Network as well. My name is William Barnes-Graham. I am the Digital Content Manager at Open Export. We are a government-supported online community helping small UK businesses get ready to sell overseas. We do this through our Ask the Experts forum, our content with guides and articles, our brand new export action planning tool, and also we have various different support and resources available on our site. So please go onto our website and check all that out. Throughout this webinar, you can ask questions at any point. Simply just go into the control panel on the right-hand side, and you should see a questions panel there. As I say, we'll be getting to questions at the end of the session, and any questions we don't get to today, you can ask them on our Ask the Experts forum. We don't typically share the slides from our speakers, but we do a recording of the webinar, which will go live on our website and on YouTube within a couple of days of the webinar. And you can also view all of our recent webinars by going onto the Special Features tab on the homepage on the website, and by clicking Recent Webinars there. We have a fantastic panel for you today. Setting the scene will be Ankur Sridhar, head of the India desk at HSBC. He'll be giving an overview of the opportunities and challenges of exporting to India. Following Ankur will be Steve Toogood from the UK India Business Council, and he will be talking about some of the support and resource available to help UK businesses get started there. Very much talking from a UK business point of view and the on-the-ground experience he's had kind of helping businesses to trade in India. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Ankur to begin today's presentation.
A very warm good afternoon to all of you, or as you would now need to learn to say namaste, the word in India with folded hands, which is a greeting that would probably break any, be an icebreaker for anything that you want to communicate to people with. The first slide that we have for you on behalf of an introduction into India is simply a map with some facts. I'm not going to go through each of these facts, but we'll just pick up a few relevant specific facts. To begin with, the population, 1.25 billion. Why is that interesting? Now, 1.25 billion is probably a market size or a slice of which you're vying for. So that, for you, is a very interesting figure to note down. The capital, New Delhi, is a political hub. The economic hub is Bombay, as it's now called Mumbai. The banking sector in India, which is regulated by the Reserve Bank of India, is a fairly well-run sector, as is evident from what we saw during the post-crisis management of the Indian economy, which reasonably stood its ground. So that was another one fact that I wanted to point out. UK-India normally, next slide, UK-India normally sort of conjures up images of a long-standing history of cultural ties, of sporting, cricketing events, of Bollywood. But I guess more than that, the reason all of you here today to listen to this webinar is an economic decision. And just to pinpoint to that, let's just take you through an overview of what India as an economy is. This is a very broad macro-based sort of overview. We can, of course, as an institution or other parties, help you as and when you do take that decision. But India is one of the fastest growing economies of the world, with recent growth levels of circa 9%. Some economists may challenge that. They may call it 7.5%, 8%, depending on the factors that are used. But the message being one, that the direction is upwards, the direction is growth. It is a vast country, about 1/3 the size of the United States, 29 different states, which brings with it diversity, which brings with it different cultures, different attitudes, different consumption patterns for you, maybe. Since the government initiated liberalization program in 1991, India has developed from a fairly closed economy, or almost a licensed Raj economy, as it was called, to an open one. I've actually been fortunate enough to witness this because I was in school when this did happen. And I mean, I could see the difference in terms of the opportunities that came about, the products that came about, the different ideas that came about. And it continues to grow and be even more open as different governments or political setups try and liberalize more products or more industries. So depending on what you're after, there is a scope, and I'm sure there will be a market. I've already covered that India is diverse, but it is extremely diverse because it's not just an SME to a mid-market to a large corporate. It's micro, it's village, it's rural, it's vocational, it's large, it's small. So depending on the sector, the segment that you want to focus into, there hopefully will be an opportunity for you to tap into. Of course, you will need to do your groundwork in terms of research. One of the more fascinating aspects about India is that despite its diversity, despite its many cultures and many languages, you will predominantly find that the business language in India is English, something that will hopefully make it easier to communicate in whatever field that you want to. There is a rising domestic demand and rapidly growing middle class. I will cover this slightly in detail separately, but this is something that was creating demand. Now, outside of that, the sectors of opportunity for UK companies include agribusiness, biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, and I will probably cover in a minute a range of industries where the opportunity exists. What are the advantages of doing business in India? Well, I guess the prime advantage is economic, and that's the reason you're considering just the way you would consider any other market. But as already covered, it is one of the largest consumer markets in the world, derived from its population, derived from its ever-increasing sort of middle class, has more and more of a consumption power which was not seen 20 years ago. So India consumption power today probably equates the larger part of some countries or some continents that you would earlier be exploring. So just a sheer size or a pie of that could be exciting for you. There is a hugely abundant skilled manpower. There are highly efficient professional managers, competent professionals in diverse fields. More than that, what you also need to understand is that the last 10 years, outside of just seeing increase in consumption power for the middle class or the urban Indian, has also seen them highly connected to the internet, and hence sort of bringing in global aspirations, global trends, global products that are used anywhere in the world, and they want to use the same. So if you have a product or a service which you think works well here, there is likely that you will find a market within the diverse set of India that is willing to either explore that or use that. It has the world's largest youth population. The government agencies have a pro-business attitude. I will say this partly with a caution, because then with government agencies comes a bit of bureaucracy, which we cover in challenges. However, there has been an intent and direction to sort of streamline that and make India seem more open to growth, more and more so. An extensive trade network comprising of regional and bilateral free trade agreements, and I know that there are other trade agreements that are in development with various other countries and economic regions. What are the challenges? The challenges is India is a price competitive market, and I cannot stress this high enough. It is hugely price competitive, and people would want to see value, and if they see that value and it can be delivered at a lower price, they will go for the lower price. Relationships will develop, that will develop over time, but you will need to set your price point right. Barriers to trade and investment in some sectors. This is partly regulatory, this is partly India not being fully open, but I guess you could choose your sector beforehand and make an informed decision. Intellectual property. This is, of course, going to be another big challenge, because with the size and breadth of India comes a lot of ingenuity, which is able to replicate a lot of products. So you want to be very cautious while entering a country like India and sort of making sure that you have enough protection in terms of any intellectual property that you are taking to that country. There is risk of bureaucratic delays like in any country, but in India it is a reality, and this is something you need to be prepared for. Don't get scared by it. It can be overcome by following the correct processes, but this is something that you would need to be mindful of. As I mentioned earlier, that I would be covering some of the industries where there is an opportunity in India. The biggest one, and something where UK hopefully has a lot of expertise as well, is infrastructure. India is planning a massive investment in infrastructure to meet the demand of its ambitious GDP growth target. And it's not just GDP growth target is what I'd say. I mean, when we're talking infrastructure, we're talking India coming up with 5 or 6 metro products, or the underground products as we probably know it in the UK. New rail networks, high-speed rail networks, we're talking about road development, we're talking about the basics of infrastructure, and the sheer size of the country presents a huge opportunity there. Education. Everybody in India wants to be more and more educated, and it's not just a cultural thing. I guess it's an economic thing that drives people towards it, and that is something you need to understand. This is because the sheer size of the population, again, induces competition, which means that even for getting a basic job or a graduate job, you will have to be well qualified, better than the other million people to get that job. So that drives people towards investing money into education, which is a key sort of area for investment from UK perspective. Brand UK in education sells in India, so that is something you could explore. Energy. Again, the sheer size of the country makes it one of the biggest consumers of energy. What you should also look at is that, of course, one are the conventional sources of energy, but you should also look at biofuels, alternative fuels, or alternative ways of supplying energy. We're talking of basic lighting, we're talking of basic electricity for a couple of hours to run a particular school. So there are many ideas. I guess these are things that you need to explore and develop. Engineering, in the I guess the slide talks about the aerospace and the extreme high end of technical expertise there, but even within probably a more lesser advanced engineering field, you will have opportunities. In this automotive field, or I'd say the automotive ancillary industry, is huge. I mean, there are regions which are developing just at the back of that. Biotechnology is another huge field which is expected to touch about 27 billion by 2020. Some of the other industries or maybe services I can touch upon are, for example, health services. This is a huge demand in India. I can talk about e-commerce development. This is, again, another burgeoning sector in India. We can talk about skill development rather than just education, and we're talking about vocational skills, because more and more people want to get employed and sort of come up the curve from basic sort of subsistence level to having a better sort of spending power. Moving on to the next slide, which sort of gives you an idea of India's current trade patterns, both on the import side and the export side. Yes, admittedly, UK currently does not feature on either of the side on the top 5 partners, but then again, that can be seen as an opportunity or that can be seen as a deterrent, but I'm assuming that is an opportunity, and that's why all of you are here attending this webinar. To conclude, where does that leave India, and what is it that it's got going for it? So India, the economy is very ripe. It is at a platform, or has been at that platform from a number of years, where there is high growth, there is potential for more growth, and there is a hunger and energy to grow. The polity of the country, or the politics of the country at this point, is pro-development, and they have the will and intent to do things or make changes, which hopefully will be beneficial. And most importantly is the will of the people to sort of compete with the rest of the world. That is something that would help. Where does that leave the UK exporters? Well, India, I guess, it's a high growth market, but I'd say that with cautious when trying to, with a caution when trying to explore India as an opportunity. Take this as another or any other investment decision that you're making. You have to do your homework, you have to do your research, but India will present a huge set of opportunities, as I've already mentioned in the past 10 minutes. So go ahead, brace yourselves, and hopefully explore a bit more of the spice. Have a great day. Thank you.
Just before passing over to Steve, I'd just like to remind everyone that you can ask questions at any point using the control panel on the right-hand side. But for now, over to Steve to talk into a bit more detail, and yeah, I'm sure it'll be good.
Well, thank you very much, William and Anka. Thank you for your presentation. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Steve Tuger from UK India Business Council, and we're the leading business-to-business network and membership organisation supporting trade and investment with India. So just to follow on and complement Anka's presentation, I hope to just give you a little taste as to what British business is actually doing in India, and to give you some ideas as to how the larger corporates and also how support is in place for SMEs and MSBs into India, because it is truly one of the well, it is the largest. This is the fastest growing market at the moment with regards to GDP growth, and now ahead of China, of course. So the next slide, please. Okay, we've covered this. A large, diverse, and with the next slide, multicultural society. Now, I love India. Every time you go there, it will have changed. It's diverse, it's secular, everybody is there to become their own businessman. But in that context, it's also a large country, and its multicultural presents its challenges, as does logistics and everything else to do with regulation and bureaucracy. But I want to come on to that, and realistically, that's changing very rapidly, making the environment for business, although it's still difficult there, better and better, and the current mandated government will make changes in that regard. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is the key to it all. Last year, there were new elections in India, and the BJP well, a large democratic mandate, really. The first time, really, that there's been a non-coalition government in terms of one of the houses there, and a business-orientated government to that extent, looking to deregulate and push through lots of new policies, and especially with regards to allowing external businesses to move into the marketplace. There were restrictions. It was a closed economy until 1991. So it's only recently opened up in India. Many people don't realise that. So there are regulations in place to protect it, but FDI restrictions, especially in terms of defence, which has now moved to 49% and 51% in some cases, and with regards to retail sector, 100% single brand retail investment is now allowed in the marketplace. And this has opened up the markets to financial and the larger corporates, most of which are already there. Okay, next slide, please. And this is the man who's driving it, Mr. Modi. You will be seeing lots and hearing a lot more about India in the forthcoming months with regards to his presence here, as has been the case with China with Xi Jinping just recently. You will hear a lot more about India and lots of very positive messages, because you have to appreciate that the UK is the largest G20 investor in India. We actually, if you look at the organised sector, that's not just the general agri sector and everything else, but the organised sector, if you break it down that way, British businesses actually employ about 5.5% of the employees in that sector. And relationships are strong in the marketplace. 7.7% of profits from British-orientated companies are reinvested in training and CSR, whilst there's new government's decrees in place. British businesses put 4.4% against CSR into India. So the relationships are very strong. Next slide, please. Okay, and as I said, the largest investor, but it's a two-way street, this. There are 700 incorporated British businesses in India already. and many of the big names are there. Vodafone, Diageo, are all big players. And similarly, you will be aware of Tata and SR and etc. Mahindras, Bajaj, they're all big family companies that now have investments here and supporting significant number of employees as well. 110,000 people work for Indian-owned companies in the UK. So you can understand that the various highest levels of government down through to the business networks, relationships are very strong. So British business is well respected, and the networks are established in India. And I'll talk about them later as to how we can help you on that pathway. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to touch on a couple of new initiatives from the government that are making the place easier to do business. It's not easy at the moment, but it is getting easier, and it certainly will do so. There are campaigns in place. Make in India. Only 15% of Indian GDP is associated with manufacturing. That's really because of the, as I said, coming out from 1991, there's lack of investment in technology in the marketplace. And they need that investment now. So there's lots of opportunities for technology sharing and joint ventures and partnerships into India. And the government is making that easier through certain initiatives. There's a Digital India initiative as well, which will open up a new place. And you'll know that it's not just Bollywood in India, but there are big centres of media and activity in places like Chennai and Calcutta and elsewhere. And there's all sectors really across India. Some of them are government-owned sectors are more difficult to engage with, you know, the coal sector, the mining, the railways. But there is a need for infrastructure. And again, our big players, our big companies are already there. The McDonald's and the Arabs and all those British businesses are well established in India and already there. But there is place and will be ongoing as things move forward. There's plans to build 100 new cities in India. And there's, in terms of telecoms and etc., there's real ways of new initiatives in terms of product innovations taking place because of the pure scale of the place. So it's somewhere that you should look at. With regards to regulation, you'll realise that, as I said, with FDI, but there's also the paperwork side of it. Some of the things that makes business slow in India is that's the way that the things are structured. Old bureaucracies are still in place, and paper moves slowly between desks. However, Indian government has moved towards e-biz portals, so you can now apply for your PAN, your tax reference number online and things like this. So as I said, again, you need to know the people in the marketplace. Work with Indians, develop the relationships with them. They're very friendly, outgoing, but if you find the right partners and invest your time there and your money in the right way and look to the medium term, and you get good tax advice and good legal advice, and use the British Business Network, there's every good opportunity for you to look at it. And you should certainly be looking at India if you're of a size of business that has established product portfolio and can look forwards. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of India as we see it. If you go to the next slide, please. I'd like to just tell you a little bit about UK India Business Council, just to give you a view of this perspective. These are our board members, and you can see from most of the main players in India have representation on the UK India Business Council board and lead on sector discussions with JETCO and things at the very highest level. But that shows the level of our influence. Next slide, please. And similarly, on the other side of the coin, well, this is our advisory council in India. And on the left of the picture, as you see it, that's Tata of Trank Group. He heads the retail arm of Tata. And on the right is Abbott Gulachan. He's the chair of HCC, Hindustan Construction Corporation, one of the largest construction businesses in India. So the networks, I assure you, are very strong across UKTI, UK IBC, the British business groups in India, and those Indian companies, family-owned, many of them, alongside the British businesses. Okay, next slide, please. And again, thank you. Okay, so this, it's all sounds very grand for the big guys, but what about the SMEs and the medium-sized businesses? Those of you who have differentiated products but are looking to expand your market, and especially one that you mustn't ignore, one that's growing at 7.5% at the moment. Well, UK India Business Council has, through funding from UKTI, set up business centres pan-India. I'll show you some pictures of them shortly. But we do now all the B2B and B2C research support work that UKTI used to do in India. It's now done through UK IBC's sector leads, and we have a large research group of people from business who are doing this work. So if you need a macro overview before you move in, or you need partnership searches or distribution searches, you want your product evaluated, you can do that. We have events we can run through our centres, you'll see. We can do turnkey incorporation services and connect you through our advisory network to the taxation legal advice groups. We can even employ people in India for you, because as soon as you're incorporated out there, you'll start paying income tax and corporation tax and the like. So there are ways to have people acting as consultants who will employ on your behalf, so to stop you incurring those taxations issues. And then when you move into India, we'll hold your hand into our networks, and we have business centres there. We're not for profit, but we look for people to move out as quickly as possible, obviously, but to establish themselves. We have centres, office space, and the likes. And organisations like British Council, AOC, do their training through our centres in India. So we're part of an integrated network of support in India for you. Next slide, please. Okay, if we just whiz through this, just to show you a flavour of the British brand in India, how the flag's being waved. These are the centres. You can see it's got a British, a Great Britain logo all over it. If you're a company manufacturing in Britain with your expertise, you will be respected in India, and you should protect your brand. You should register it. Your trademark is first to file. Although there are members of the protocols, it's necessary for you to do that. We can help you with that and point you in that right direction. We can just run through the next few slides at the end. William, please. Okay, so 4 video conferencing facilities, 4 event training in Bangalore, in Mumbai, and in Delhi and in Gurgaon. Full networking event facility, and the support that's on the ground for you. So, in quick summary, I'd say India's off to an ever-increasing and fast pace with the new government. The legislative programme is moving forward positively, with the objective of removing obstacles to efficient business practice, and electronic portals and the like are one way that's happening. There's still significant challenges in the marketplace, and you must invest and put your time in. Understand it's not a quick buck, but if you invest in a long time, the scalable factors in India are significant. And UK already has a vested interest in making this relationship work. And UK IBC, UKTI, HSBC, and other partners are all there to help support you and guide you along that path. Thank you very much.
Cool, thank you, Steve. Both Steve and Anka are really great presentations, and I feel as though they've both been really useful overviews and insights into the Indian market. So I'm just going to open the floor now to questions. And the first one we've got here is regarding kind of the renewable energy market. And the question is, how well supported by government is the renewable energy market, especially for biogas? Steve, do you want to start on that?
Well, I guess that you're talking about the Indian market, are you? How well it's supported
Yes,
by them? Or?
So, well, I hope so.
Okay. The renewable, India is one of the largest renewable growing markets for the renewable sector, especially in the solar development, manufacturing, and incentives for manufacturing on the ground in India. Although much of the foreign organisations, the French, the Chinese are already, Germans and Americans are already, and Russians are in there actively. So with regards to the renewable sector, it's a rapidly growing market. There is a deficit of energy in India, and the coals are poor quality, and there's lack of interconnectedness in the grid network, and so there's an aspiration towards providing 24/7 electric power across the country by 2020. So in that context, you can understand that there's a massive amount of investment going in, so the opportunities there. People need to enter this sector carefully and in a very considered way, because there are areas in which British business can provide support for things like regulation of the marketplace, because it is a poorly regulated market. It's not necessarily transparent at all levels, but the new big investments are required. So there is definitely a place to look at it. It's a very difficult question to ask on the top level of it, but there are incentives in place in terms of tariffs and things like this that are coming through to help companies. Obviously it depends on the specific nature of that company's business, and I think they need to look at it from their position, their niche proposal and to see what's available to them. But certainly take a look at it, because it's a energy deficit. There's a 4.5% deficit in energy supply in India, so you can understand that there's a definite requirement, and there will be massive investment going in.
Cool, thank you, Steve. And another question here, this one from Roy, which is, how do you find a reliable local importer with particular reference to selling online in India?
Do you like me to take that, or I could tell that if you want.
You want to take that, Steve?
Okay. Well, I mean, online India 5 years ago, very little of it. It was a nascent. It was at nascent stage. The market was very, very small. Now it's about 1 billion, and it's going to rise by about, they think, something like 20-fold within the next 10 years or so. Because before, everything was delivered to source, but you used to pay it 7 days later after you got it at your house. There was no organised structure. But now there's Flipkart are out there, Amazon are out there, and big things. Mintra are out there. And it looks like a Western e-commerce site. You have to go through one of these companies, these consolidation companies. They'll look at your product and they'll see if it fits in with their portfolio. And then there's also the stocking and the logistics and all those issues that they will support. So yes, it's very much online retail is the big thing. It's the massive growth side of things. The retail market is now opening up through that channel. Whereas 5 years ago, you would really, really think very seriously about it. Now, if you've got a product, if you're big enough, and obviously value price point's the key thing in India. You must consider, it's not everything's not Western price, but there's a value price point to consider. And that's why you need to research the market, make sure your portfolio looks right for them. But then you need to talk to those channels, Flipkart, Mintra, and the like. We can connect if with the right portfolio. We can have those connections for you.
Cool, thank you, Steve. And maybe one here for Anchor, which is a question just regarding business coming into the UK from India. So certainly in terms of supply chains, possibly, and just in terms of what's the other way looking like? What's looking like in terms of Indian imports to UK businesses, and what opportunities there for UK exporters looking for manufacture or so on?
Well, yes. On the other side, which is inward into UK, there is, of course, what India is trying to tap into is into the UK, the R&D sector, the technical sector, get the technical know-how back to India if that is possible, or look at automotive component manufacturing. So there are multiple industries. They also look at UK particularly as sort of an inroads into the wider European market, because they feel more comfortable setting up shop in the UK, where they feel that there is a connect and more driven by language and history. And from there, sort of tap the European market. What also has UK has going for itself is, I guess, just the eminence of London as a financial center, which has easy access to finance, equity, debt, or whatever that is they're looking for to set up. So there are many things, in summary, which are driving Indian companies to explore UK as an investment option on the other side.
Cool, thank you, Anka. And a question here, this is from Andrew, and he asked a question about the implications of export control regulations for electronics or software exports to India. I don't know who wants to start on that. Steve?
Well, yeah, there are, as with most markets, there are export controls are both from our side as well, of course. So if you have something that's has sensitivity about it, you just need to check for it with our own authorities to make sure that you have the necessary approvals out there. With regards to into India, realistically, you just check that your product isn't restricted. There are some restrictions in some aspects of defence and the like, naturally, but and you will know those if you're already engaged in that marketplace. So just check with the UK authorities and go through that process. The Indian market for defence is the third largest in the world. We UK businesses provide 10% of the world defence exports, but only 2% into India. This is sort of a historical thing. But as they start making more in India, I mentioned that 15%, that's going to grow. There's going to be more need for our software, our technology as a place in India. So yeah, you need to manage it the right way, but restrictions you'll know from an organisation, and it changes day by day, country by country. So just check through the right channels that way.
Yeah, just to add to it, Steve's already mentioned that yes, there may be restrictions, and these could be sector product specific depending on what is it that you're trying to export. But there will be clear laid down rules and regulations, and like in any other country, if you just follow through them, it might appear a bit more challenging than normal, but I guess that's probably just the process. And the other thing that you need to keep in mind is that with any export, there are foreign exchange regulations in India, which also need to be understood, like in some other countries. So it is just about probably getting a bit of education before just jumping in. And there are, of course, there is a lot of help available through various channels to guide you through that. So once you know what you're doing, there will be help available, hopefully.
Again, just to add to that, it needs to be more detail about what the product is, but with regards to software, online, let's take the education sector. There's a massive deficit in quality of graduates coming out suitable for education. So the accredited courses, training courses, vocational skill set training courses, or online type of things. The markets is opening up and is there already for those type of products in India.
Thank you both. And we'll probably just do one last question. And we've had a few people asking this, and it's not surprising because we've got a big food and drink following. It's just a question which is, what is the opportunity for British food and drink in India? One person asked in particular reference to alcohol. Do either of you have any idea in terms of that industry?
Well, Anka, do you want me to take that? Or are you...
I mean,
Okay.
I'll have to be very honest. I don't have an expertise in the food industry, but there is demand, and if I heard correctly, there was also a question of alcohol. So India is definitely not restrictive in terms of alcohol consumption, minus a few states here, which might be. So there is a huge consumption of alcohol and, of course, other British brands in terms of a regular food and drink. So in terms of just the demand, yes, there is availability. As I said, like in any other product, you will probably just need to test this a bit more in terms of research, test market it. There will be differences in terms, you'll have to keep cultural differences in some foods not being acceptable, so you might want to iterate that. McDonald's, for example, has a completely separate menu for India, which is something, I mean, they do try and customize, but if you went to an Indian McDonald's, you'd be surprised at the range of vegetarian options and so on and so forth. So I guess this is something one will just have to work out, but yeah, Steve, I'm not sure if you can add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Diageo or United Distilleries and Diageo are huge in India. But there are some things you need to consider. One is that there are some regulations. Again, there's regulations everywhere. It's the same for the Indian companies. It's not. This is the thing I always say. Indians are doing business in India. It's just that when we're going there to do business, we need to understand what to do, find the right partners and channels. But things like marking the products, how you mark them, you need how long it stays on the shelf, and you need to put retail prices on it before you ship. So there's no regulations to be aware of for the food and drink sector. But most of our brands are in there already. All the big names are moving into India. There are channels. Organized retail in India is at its nascent stage. So it's only 5% max that is through malls and organized stores, but they're growing fast. So all the mom and pop corner shops, they're still there in the background, but there's room. And the channels to get your products evaluated and tested, they're not so complicated because the organizations that are running these malls are quite openly accessible, and there is opportunity to test brands. The key thing is logistics. So you need to find the right partner for your product. somebody who's going to manage your brand, and just be aware of regulations with regards to marking and things like this, which are there in the background, but you can be made aware of. So key is, don't go with the first person you meet in India. Anything you do, even if that person tells you they know everybody, they won't know everybody. The market's huge and diverse, and you need to, and regional as well. So do your research first. Study the market, understand where your product fits, the macro environment, who the competitors are, where your price point should be, and then go there and meet people and spend time to establish the best partnership and route to market, and then look for the middle time. And there's every good opportunity for you if you take that sensible risk proportioned approach.
Cool, thank you, Steve, and thank you, Ankur. Some great questions and also some great answers. And on that note, I think we're going to have to wrap up the today's webinar and the series, the High Growth Webinars series. If we didn't get to your questions, then please don't hesitate to ask them in our Ask the Experts forum. And our speakers and our wider community will hopefully get to those questions generally within a few days. So thank you to both Ankur and Steve for your great advice and the insights into exporting into India. And also thank you to HSBC and the Overseas Business Network for helping us with the series. It's been a fascinating series from Germany to USA to China to India. I think we've hopefully provided some useful content and advice for all of you attendees this week. We will be sending you recordings of this webinar and all the webinars in the next few days, and you can watch any of the previous webinars on demand by going to the Special Features tab on the Open to Export website and clicking Recent Webinars. And you can also find out about our upcoming webinars. So our next webinar now is how to reach international customers online, which will be taking place at the end of November. On another note, this week we released our brand new export action planning tool. It's an online tool, free and simple to use, and please do check it out. Go to the website, look up more info, and definitely try to complete your plan, because there's a chance to submit to our competition and win up to £3,000 of funding to help implement those plans. So definitely an exciting new product, we think, and hopefully you'll find it useful. And yeah, so definitely do check that out. So that's all from us for now in this series. And please take the survey as you exit. Let us know what you think, what you thought about this webinar or any of the other webinars if you've attended multiple. And give us suggestions for future topics. We always really appreciate hearing what you have to think. So please do keep up the great feedback. And that's all for now. So thank you for attending. Goodbye.